Hey there, internets. So, Saturday Night Rant time, very late, but as long as it's before midnight, it's still Saturday night. So, election ballots have dropped. They are, it's now time to start voting. They're getting good turnout. And of course, life continues on. Of course, the Democrats are still pushing their abortion up to the moment of birth. They say they're not, but anytime you ask them, it's, do you think, if you ask them, should unrestricted abortion include, late trimester, and they give you a mealy mouthed answer about the woman and their doctor, which they may as well just say yes. Change your mind 2 weeks before birth? Go ahead and have that abortion. That's how they feel about it. You try and say what restrictions should be there, they'll never tell you. Okay? So, they're doing that. Fetterman's starting to wane in Pennsylvania, and Stacey Abrams on the abortion thing, she tried to make it an economic issue, and this reminds me of what I heard on Tim Pool when the draft decision was first leaked. He said, the Democrats were like, people would say, inflation's through the roof, but abortion. But gas prices are over $4 a gallon. Democrats, but abortion. So when parent says, I can't get formula for my child, you could have aborted it. Stacey Abrams making abortion an economic issue, saying that's why people have abortions. They have abortions mostly because they've chosen irresponsible behavior. Outside of the cases of rape or the mother's life, that's what's going on. You made decisions, and then now you got the consequences. If we had, when I looked it up, there's about 900,000 abortions in this country every year. Of those, if every woman who became pregnant via rape aborted that child, and you had included the mother's life or physical health, even if you extended to her physical health, you'd still have less than 100,000 abortions a year in a country of 300 million people. We got 900,000. That's abortion as birth control. And then what kind of keyed me off for the Saturday Night Rant is this is just showing you how extreme the Democrats are. So, I think it was Trafalgar did a poll conducted by Conventions of States Action in partnership with Trafalgar, polled over 1,000 likely 2022 election voters in October, and asked them if they believe underage minors should be required to wait until they're adults to use puberty blockers, undergo permanent sex change procedures. The poll found that 78.7% of all respondents, comprising Democrats, Republicans, and nonpartisan affiliations, said they should wait. This is like a duh factor. I want to ask, what the hell is wrong with these other 22% that think, or to almost closer to 21%, that think that that these permanent life-altering procedures and drugs should be used by minors. Most of us, when we were 13, were definitely not all that bright. We didn't know who we were. We didn't know what we wanted to do. I've heard people say, well, we have kids preparing for careers at, in fifth grade. And it's like, yeah, you can change careers. When I was 5, I wanted to be a blueberry farmer because I really liked blueberries. When I was 12, I wanted to go in the Army. When I was 14, I was thinking maybe be a welder, maybe go to a 4-year college. Ended up deciding to go to Skagit for welding. I had a very short-term welding job. Ended up delivering appliances for 20 years instead. I mean, careers change, and you can still change them. This channel may not go anywhere. It may go somewhere. I don't know. It'd be really cool if it did. So, like, comment, subscribe. Help me fuel the algorithm, because the algorithm is killing conservative stuff this close to Election Day, especially any time I do a Pro 2A video. All right, it really does come to, you got to ask what's wrong with these people. I had somebody, I saw one of these, believe that science is real and climate change is real and this and this. I said, the only thing missing there is there are only two genders. Someone asked me to elaborate. I'm like, there's only two genders. And if you believe in objective reality, there's this little thing called biology. And that says that you're either an XX or an XY. And there are men are men, women are women, non-binary is made up. The other 55 genders are all made up. Accepting, understanding that, yes, there are genetic situations where it's XXY chromosomes, some of those kind of things. And generally all of those result in somebody that's sterile, and usually they develop female characteristics. Usually there is one condition where a gene switches around, and I can't remember the name of it, and it creates a man who is otherwise sterile. But he develops male. So you gotta wonder what's wrong with these people that think that that's even a good idea. I mean, it should be, you don't even get to start the counseling process, and the procedure should take 2 years of this. Because when we had our watch party for Matt Walsh's What is a Woman, he had a psychiatrist on there. She said, depending on the study, actual people with gender dysphoria are 1 in 30,000 to 1 in 100,000. That means in my little county, we should have somewhere between 1, I say 1.5, but we'll say 2, round it up. 2 and 5 actual transgender people in Skagit County. I can guarantee you that you'd probably find more people claiming to be transgender than that. So it's a very tiny number of people, and that we're seeing a lot more than there actually are. And so the actual breakdown by party was those opposed to that stuff for minors was 96.8% of Republican voters. Well, I gotta wonder about those other 3%. They're probably rhinos. 84.6% of independent voters are saying this is not a good idea. But only 53.2% of Democrats said that minors should wait until they're adults to pursue medical transition. They should be waiting until they're adults for social transition, not just medical transition. What is wrong with the Democratic Party? They are that out of step with the rest of the population. It's not Republicans who are out of step with the general population on issues. It is Democrats. They're obsessed with abortion. They're obsessed with identity politics. They're obsessed with this transgender stuff. The same person had asked me to elaborate what woke meant. It's a far left segment of the far left that is obsessed with identitarian politics. Is the short answer. Is what woke is, and really they are. They're obsessed with race, gender, sexuality. They only see you for those identities, and they have to, everything's about what you fit into on that. And so, according to this survey, 92.3% of 18 to 24-year-old respondents said minors should wait until they are adults to medically transition. And then it drops. And then it comes back up again. And I'm like, what is wrong with the people between 25 and 34? The only thing I can think of is that they're afraid to say this is wrong, because the next generation that's starting to come of age right now is actually a little more conservative than the prior generation. Just a little bit. And that is completely bizarre. And it's not hateful attacks. Matt Walsh was doing a tour of college campuses, and they'd show the movie and then they talk about it. And these people are shouting him down, demanding he be shut up. Effectively, they're wanting to cut out his tongue, which tells me they don't have an argument. They're just afraid of what he might say. They don't want to say, you're wrong and here is why. They don't want to engage and convince people. They just want to shut him up and by virtue of no opposition, win the argument, which is pretty common on the left. They don't have an argument. And they'll call it right-wing attacks and call it stochastic terrorism. Sorry, but Matt Walsh is not responsible for any bomb threats on any hospital. And I'm even questioning. I want to say that the one that it was in happened in Boston may have turned out to be debunked or unrelated. But they're actually talking about a bill possibly to shut that down in Tennessee. But Vanderbilt finally decided they're going to shut theirs down, and they're trying to say, oh, it's all fake. It's on video. Their own people talking about doing it. They have a peer guide type thing where they have a person who's transitioning or transitioned as minor, it's a little older, that will accompany your child through the process. Basically, they're there to make sure the doctor says the right thing and that your kid says the right thing and make sure your kid doesn't get talked out of it. It's completely bizarre. It needs to be put to a stop. I'm sorry, but if you think that medically transitioning a child is a good idea, that's child abuse. Children aren't cut out for that. They can't consent to sex. How can they consent to permanent changes to their bodies? The American Medical Association said we should discourage young people from getting tattoos because they're permanent, but now wants to go ahead if a 5-year-old says they're a girl, to stick him in a dress and start cutting on him. That's how bizarre this has gotten. So think about that when you vote in the next couple of weeks. Which party is pushing abortion up to the moment of birth? It's the Democrats. Even if you generally are pro-choice, think about this a minute. Do you really support an 8-month long fetus that's viable being aborted? If you don't, you might want to be looking at the Democrats, because I saw another survey where, in terms of which is the more extreme position, the Republican wrote rape, incest, mother's life versus abortion upon demand. People are like, abortion up to the moment of birth is bizarre. Why would you do that? As far as what's the more extreme position? If you don't think kids should be transitioning and being fed all this garbage about gender ideology at 5 years old, think about which party is backing that. Biden had an executive order, and I filed it away somewhere where I was going to dig into it more. But I read the executive order, and it's basically trying to override what states might do to try and prevent gender transition, medically transitioning children, mutilating children. And the Biden administration's pushing that in an executive order. If I can find the link, I'll pop the link back into the description below. I don't want to make a promise I can't keep. But think about that the next few weeks. That is what they are about, all they have to talk about. And they are completely out of step with the American people. The American people do not support kids doing that. And most of you would look back on your life. I mean, even myself, looking back just 20 years, to when I was 24. I did some things that weren't the brightest, smartest of moves. So, and when I was 18 and 16 and 14, I had ideas in my head that were terrible ideas. It's a good thing I didn't get to carry any of them out. You know, it could have really screwed up my life at times. So that's what I got for you. Think about that as ballots, or you're contemplating your ballot. Until then, you all take care.